Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? We'll delve into what happened last week and what they might do going forward here in a second. Let's just stay in the immediate, which is Odell has cleared waivers. Give me your thoughts, man. Probability of him joining New Orleans.
I'll probably put it at about 10%. I just think that the other teams that I know you've been talking about and that you're seeing floating around are probably a little bit more attractive to Beckham. Maybe if the Saints weren't down to their third-string quarterback and their playoff chances are shaky and their salary cap situation is not good to where he basically have to be playing for the veteran minimum, maybe it would be more attractive. But you're hearing the Packers, you're hearing other teams. Some of those teams make a little bit more sense. So I'm not going to say no, but I would be surprised if they actually did land him. And it's funny, Sean Payton yesterday when speaking to the media, they were asking about if he put it in a waiver claim. And he's just like, no, obviously that's impossible. So you needed to get him through waivers, but still there are definitely other suitors. And if he's looking to actually chase a Super Bowl, I think we can agree that the Saints aren't necessarily a Super Bowl contender in the form they are right now.
We'll wait and see. I mean, we'll wait and see what happens here with Odell. This could be compounded with the Michael Thomas news that he's done for the year, but then also now that Deontay Harris, his case is closed, it looks as though he's going to be suspended by the league for 3 games. Larry, can you give us any insight onto when, how that might happen?
Well, now that the case is closed, we don't really have a great timetable per se. It's up to the NFL. And depending on how quickly they want to move their feet with this, I would think as of today, if we get into tomorrow and we don't hear any news, I don't think it would happen this week. But I'm not going to say it won't happen by the end of today. But if you get into a game week, usually the NFL kind of waits. But we know he did plead guilty, and that is definitely an admission to the NFL. So this is something we've been kind of waiting for. We thought it might happen at the very beginning of the season, but they wanted to wait for the case to kind of play out now that it has. There's no real precedent. All right, it takes X amount of days for the NFL to decide. They can kind of move at their own pace. If they want to move quickly, they can. So the Saints and Deontay Harris are just basically at the mercy of the league right now.
Is there any precedent that he might be able to escape this without suspension?
I don't know any off the top of my head. I think part of it is because he did put in a guilty plea.
Yeah.
That's something to me that says, all right, you're guilty and you've got to be punished. And so now this is different. Say if Marshawn Lattimore, we still haven't even talked about that in a while. If the charges are dropped, there is precedent that he can move on, but these charges weren't dropped. And so to me, it would be far-fetched for the NFL to say, we're going to let you go even though you pled guilty.
He's on Twitter at Larry Holder. So the Saints gag one away against Atlanta. They were abysmal at first. They come all the way back and then blow it. I don't know if you have any context on this, but Larry, that's kind of one of the ones where I think at the end of the season you look back and you say wherever you are, like that's the reason why you are where you are. I guess just your reaction to watching that unfold the way it did.
Well, throw the Giants game in there too, and those are the two that you're going to say, man. You say even if they miss the playoffs. I mean, I'm not trying to be an alarmist, but if they, who knows? We don't know what type of team they're going to be every week, and I think that's my overall scope of seeing what we saw against Atlanta, a team you typically play well against. I mean, last year with a Taysom Hill-led quarterback effort, they beat Atlanta twice. And it's not like Atlanta's that much better than they were last year. And so I was pretty surprised to see the lack of coverage, especially early. I mean, they were just letting receivers run past them. And, of course, that bit them late. And I think that you see a defensive letdown against an inferior team, and that has you asking questions. But I think everyone's eyes are going to be offensively, and that's why we're talking about Odell Beckham, because Trevor Siemian did not get a lot of help at all. At that point, all you wanted to do was have him throw the ball to Kamara or Ingram, or even hand it off to them, or maybe find Deontay Harris, because I could just tell you, I know Saints fans have been complaining about a lack of separation for receivers, but in my post-weekly outlook of my column that I do every week on The Athletic, I do wide receiver separation. And this is easily the worst trio of a lack of separation with Kenny Stills, Adam Troutman, and Marquez Callaway. It's the worst separation of a trio in the league for a week this year. And so the fact that Siemian was even putting the ball in their hands, and this doesn't count drops and all these things, and so that to me has to be the most frustrating thing. And I'm sure Sean Payton is pulling his hair out trying to figure out how to fix this. And I don't know where the fix is unless all of a sudden people start working on route running and perfecting it a little bit better and having a little bit more reliable hands, because at this point, this is who you got.
If you don't sign Odell, what about Deshaun Jackson?
Well, I think he's going to the Raiders. That's what I've been seeing that's been reported. So, and that makes a little bit of sense for them, just because they want to add a piece because they cut Henry Ruggs.
No, my mistake.
Deshaun
You're right.
Jackson.
You're right. I'm looking at this now. That's official. The Raiders have announced it. My bad. I missed that.
Yeah, no, but that was someone I think they would have looked at. Yeah, I think so. But I think the Raiders situation, that he probably thought was a little bit better. And, it's the Saints are not exactly the most attractive team in the league right now. And this is what we're finding out as we move along in the season.
So let's talk quarterback then. We saw Taysom Hill run in. This is what a lot of people said, right? We saw Taysom Hill run there. He completed back-to-back passes, kind of got the offense going a little bit, and then Siemian went right back in. But then Siemian did lead 3 touchdown drives in the fourth quarter. So now that Taysom has played a game, he'll go through a full game week. What do you think? I mean, about the possibility of Sean Payton making the switch and going back to Taysom Hill, similar to what he did a year ago?
I think we have to open that possibility every week. I just think that what we saw offensively against the Falcons was not necessarily Trevor Siemian's fault. And even at times with Jameis Winston, he doesn't have a star receiving core. A lot of some of the things that happened to him weren't his fault either. But still, it's to me, if you take Taysom Hill and put him as a quarterback all the time, you're not using him as a skill position player. It's not like he got a ton of touches in that role as it was last week. I was kind of surprised by that. I mean, if he's playing, I thought you might involve him a little bit more. Maybe that happens going forward. But I just think that if Trevor Siemian isn't bad, I don't think you should change it. That's my opinion. Maybe the offense has a little bit more juice. And if Siemian stinks maybe for a game or two, they move on and just put Taysom back there and let's see what happens. And we know Sean Payton's affection for Taysom Hill, so I'm not going to say that Siemian's going to be a quarterback for the rest of the season. I just think, at least for this week, he hasn't done anything to me to say, oh, wow, the Saints lost because of him. Because I don't think that's the case.
I don't think the Saints lost because of him, but they certainly were lifeless for the bulk of the game offensively. Is it something where, so I'll ask your opinion now, because I was asking what you think Sean Payton will do. What about you? What do you think? Like, should they stick with Siemian or should they go with Taysom Hill?
I think they should stick with Siemian for now. And I think it's because the lack of skill position players, and I think the offense, it's not like they weren't running plays and they were having all these confusion. And I think the offense specifically, too, they had, 7 of the penalties, 7 of the 10. Those were drive killers, too. You're having to come back from some of that, drops. Now, I'm not going to say if Trevor Siemian has a bad game, and it might only take one, I'm not opposed to going and changing to Taysom Hill. I just think it hinders you with some of the things you do with him as a receiver. or a tight end because you're so desperate. I feel like you have to have him, but I would not be opposed if Trevor has even just like average or a little bit of a sluggish game. I would not be opposed to making the switch because, I mean, at this rate, I mean, you're going with either a backup or a number 3, and it just kind of is what it is.
Larry, they're at 5-3, so they're right here at the halfway point of the season. Obviously, now it's a 17-game season, so they've played 8, they have 9 to go. Is this a playoff team?
I just feel like this is going to be a weekly question, just because of the way they play, since they're so up and down.
Yeah.
I still think they can be. Like, they can beat Atlanta. They can go beat Carolina. They can win some of these games that are on their schedule. I feel like they can go to Philadelphia and win. But still, they could certainly lose those games. So I think it's a toss-up. So I think that they can win more of these games than maybe they can lose. But where does that get you? I mean, you're fighting for a 6 or 7 seed, and you'll be facing some of the big boys, and I think they're better than you. It was a perfect storm that you beat Tampa. I'm not sure if you can do that again. And so I do think that they can go 9-8 and get into the playoffs because I think a 9-8 team will do that. And the NFC, you've got a bunch of these teams at the top, and then it's kind of everybody else kind of mashed together.
Man, this has been I know it's cliche to say, but it's a Jekyll and Hyde team, and they have been. You beat Green Bay, you lose to Carolina. You go on the road and you beat New England. You lose to the Giants. You have the impressive win over Tampa, then you come back and you lose. Sean Payton did the whole yo-yo thing earlier in the year to try to avoid the up and downs. But, man, is there any precedent or any way that you could see this thing stabilizing for New Orleans to where this isn't just a team that ends up just finishing right around 500 where it's essentially win 1, lose 1, win 2, lose 1, lose 2, win 1 sort of thing?
You'd think by now, halfway point or just about the halfway point, that you'd have evidence to make an impression or an identity for this team, and this team doesn't have one.
Yeah.
And defense could be great one week, struggle the next. So I just think that we're not going to know. And we haven't really seen this since the 7 and 9 years, 14, 15, 16. It's really got it's got a similar feel, and yet they didn't really have winning records in any of those seasons. They have a winning record here. They were 5-2, and yet I think that you see the pieces and how they perform, and sometimes they're okay, sometimes they're not. I think it's more towards they might finish above 500 and not finish 7 and 9, like I said, 9 and 8, but. I don't know where it stabilizes. I need to see evidence of it to stabilize, and I don't see that evidence.
The only difference, from those back-to-back 7 and 9 seasons is they started notoriously slow in those seasons. And this team, as you mentioned, is above 500, so they're in a better spot now than they were then. We'll see if they can find a way to catch fire. Follow his stuff, theathletic.com/New Orleans. He's on Twitter @Larry Holder, so give him a follow there. He's with us here on Tuesdays. Hey, man, we always appreciate a couple of minutes. Here's hoping for a better result this weekend.
It'll be tough. I'll tell you what, that Tennessee defensive front,
yeah, I know.
I'd look out. And if Simeon's back there and he's not super mobile, he might get a beating. So that's something you got to watch.
Thank you, Larry.
All right. Talk to you next week, Matthew.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.